When it comes to putting together any sort of concept or motif, the animal kingdom is one of the easiest ways to go. There's a lot of different connotations and symbolism associated with certain animals, and attaching that to specific characters can say a lot about who they are, who they were, and who they're going to be. Across Sentai, Rider, heck any tokusatsu really, animals as a concept are extremely common, popular, and honestly quite easy to integrate into a design. The animal kingdom is so vast, and there are so many options to choose from when designing a distinct motif for your ranger or rider. Even in seasons that may not be predominantly based on animals, there can still be some sort of animal concept integrated into the design. So across all the animals in the world, which ones are most commonly used in Sentai? Well, that's what I'm here to share with you today. I looked at every single ranger in Super Sentai and accumulated each one whose design had an explicit animal motif in order to get to the bottom of the question, what's the most popular animal across all of Sentai's rangers? Like I said, I went through every single Sentai Ranger team and isolated every ranger who has an explicit animal motif in their concept and design. I decided to go Sentai as opposed to Power Rangers to encompass the entire timeline, and also because technically Sentai are the creators of the motifs anyways. And when I say motif, I'm talking about their ranger designs themselves. Some rangers have animal-based mecha, but they themselves have nothing to do with the animal. As an example, Shinkenger, who are more based on their elements as rangers, with the animal aspect of their mecha being purely supplemental. So teams that gain animal mechs like say Kaku Ranger are also excluded. We're looking at our real, pure 100% beast heads. I also only counted rangers that are part of the core team, so even though Ryo and Melee kinda joined the Geki Ranger team towards the end, they're not officially designated as Geki Ranger, so they're out. Alright, and with those disclaimers aside, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter, and let's get analyzing. So when I did my research, I decided to isolate their specific animal theme and then classify them in a more broad group in an attempt to get a sense of the general family of animals Sentai has seemed to favor. So we're going to go from least to most, which group has the most ranger representation. I'm also going to look at which ranger of each group, in my opinion, utilizes the animal design the best or is just my favorite of the bunch. So let's go ahead and look at the general groups from smallest to largest and break down what animals make up each group. Okay, first up, we have a humorously small group called Small Mammals, composed entirely of Yellow Buster. There haven't really been any other rabbit-themed rangers at all, and there wasn't really a good way for me to group her up with the rest of the animal groups, so here she is, the sole representative of her group. Will we have another rabbit-themed ranger? Maybe. It seems like a cool concept that hasn't been tapped into much yet, but I guess Yellow Buster is the default winner of this group. Next up, we have Big Mammals, both specifically bears. Members of this group are Gohan Yellow and Koguma Sky Blue. So of these two, I'd say that Koguma Sky Blue wins, even though they both only kind of dip into the bear theme. Koguma Sky Blue is much more obvious. The next group we have with not much of a lead is horses. This group is interesting because technically none of these are horses per se, but they are very horse-like. We have two Pegasus Rangers with Change Pegasus and Tenma Ranger, and one Kirin for Kirin Ranger. You may argue that this isn't really a horse and more like a deer or giraffe, but you know, for our purposes, it's certainly close enough. I would give this one to Tenma Ranger because I love the integration of the Pegasus face into the visor. Change Pegasus has a Pegasus on his face too, but it's literally just a symbol, and I think Tenma Rangers just makes the Pegasus feel more like a part of the Ranger overall. In the next group, we have Reptile, which interestingly enough only has two different kinds of reptiles in here. We have two snakes with Gosei Black and Hebitsky Silver, and we have one chameleon with Chameleon Green. I think it's pretty interesting that we've just had two kinds of reptiles. I guess of the reptile family, these both have really cool potential for concepts. Both kind of have a sly and sneaky aspect to them, just executed differently. It's really interesting that we have quite a variety of colors here, so I'm not quite sure what color our next reptile ranger would be. This one is tough. I really like Gosei Black's design to be honest, and Chameleon Green's is really fun, but I think I will give it to Hebitsky Silver. It's cool to see that the visor is made of the snake's body, and the asymmetry, I am just such a fan of asymmetry. With the same number of representations, we have Sapiens, which yes, all happen to be gorillas. We of course have Ginga Blue, Blue Buster, Jewel Gorilla, and KijiBrother. Huh, wow, 3 blues. I wonder what the logic is for the tendency to put gorillas as blue rangers. And yes, I added Jewel Gorilla because he's kind of treated as an entirely new ranger whenever he goes into this form, so I just felt like it made sense to add him in that way. For this group, I think KijiBrother does this the best. Now, it could be because of the silly concept of Dawn Brothers, this suit is really able to be out there. Not only does he have big and fuzzy arms, but I think the helmet is well done. It's got the Dawn Brothers sunglass visor, but the shape is on point and the mouthpiece is very cleverly done. Alright, we're picking up the pace just a little bit with dragons. In this group, we have 7 Dragonic boys. We have Changed Dragon, Dragon Ranger, Ryu Ranger, Ginga Green, Gosei Red, Ryu Commander, and Dondora Goku. You may be wondering why I put Ginga Green here, and well, look at this thing. It kinda reminds me of Rodan, and I most certainly wouldn't count Rodan as a bird. Another interesting thing about this is that there's only 3 Red Rangers, but that definitely makes sense. Dragons are probably an instant go-to when you're thinking of a leader type ranger, but if you do that too much, then the dragon concept really loses its majesty and impact. So it looks like they've used the dragon motif quite sparingly here, much to my surprise. This one is such a toughie, but I give this one to Ryu Ranger. I gave Dai Ranger a win earlier already, so maybe I just really like Dai Ranger, but the dragon face on Ryu Ranger's face is just so well done. It's sharp, it's flowy, it really embodies a fiery dragon. It's similar to the crest on Kamen Rider Cross's helmet, which you all know I love. Right after this, we have Canines. Yeah, they're almost all wolves essentially. We've got Ginga Yellow, Gao Silver, Deka Master, Wolzard Fire, Geki Violet, Gohan Black, Okami Blue, and Inu Brother. In my opinion, canines are an easy motif to use for a ranger. Wolves in particular are so cool and brooding, and also appropriately edgy when needed, so I'm not surprised that canines and dragons are so close together. For this group, my top has to be Geki Violet. Not only is it a color we hadn't had used as much up until Geki Ranger, it also introduces a bit more color to his suit than the original 3. The white accents on his suit, and especially his helmet, make this suit pop. We're moving on to some big boys with the Horn group. Yes, I know that mammoths and elephants have tusks, but the correlation all these beasts have is that they're huge and they have spiky things. We do have Mammoth Ranger and Jewel Elephant representing our tusky boys, and yeah, you may be asking why I put Mammoth Ranger in this group and not dinosaurs. Well, I think the mammoth's more distinctive features are its tusks than its prehistoric nature, so into this group it goes. For the rest, we have 3 rhinos with Green Sai, Geki Chopper, and Jewel of the World. For Jewel of the World, this one was a bit tough because he's literally composed of 3 animals. What I decided to do was look at the default mode that he's most commonly shown in, which is the Rhino mode, and also because his Rhino cube animal is the more prominent of the 3 anyways. Then for the Bison and Bulls, we have Black Bison, Bull Black, Gal Black, Magi Green, and Oshi Black. Yes, I get that Magi Green is technically a Minotaur, but you know, it's close enough. It's interesting to note that most of these are Black Rangers. I guess the Black Ranger designation kind of symbolizes formidability and intimidation with that deep black hue. I'll predict that if we have another Bull or Bison Ranger, they'll probably be a Black Ranger as well. It's pure statistics. Of this group, I'm gonna give it to Oshi Black. If you compare Oshi Black to Magi Green, their visor concepts are very similar, but the way that Oshi Black's visor just juts out of his face, it does so well to complement his bulky stature and showcase his immense strength. Tied with the Horn group is Aquatic, which refers to literally all sea life. I didn't think I needed to make an additional distinction because there are literally only a few variations that are pretty similar. You may also notice that I excluded mermaids because, I mean, I would consider a phoenix and a minotaur animal/animal-like, but not really mermaids. I hope you agree. Anyways, for sharks we have Vol Shark, Gal Blue, Gosei Blue, Jewel Shark, and Don Murasame. For dolphins, we have Blue Dolphin and Hurricane Blue. I didn't count Gosei Green because he was there for like 2 minutes and is unfortunately deceased. For whales, we have Gohan Green and Jewel Whale, and standing in a class of his own is Kajiki Yellow. I'm not really surprised by this group at all. It's a decent proportion of all animal rangers because, to be honest, a blue ranger in an animal team is almost always guaranteed to be an aquatic creature. So yeah, no surprises here at all. I have to give it to Gal Blue for this one. I feel like there's really only one way to execute this kind of animal well, and it's by making the visor the mouth. Especially with this shark theme, the teeth all over the visor really make this design so perfect and sharky. It's kind of hard to top, although Jewel Shark comes close. Alright, and here we have some buggy boys. This group definitely got a boost from King Oger being entirely bug themed. It literally more than doubled the amount of representation on this list. Representing stag beetles or Kuwagatas, we have Kuwaga Ranger, Stag Buster, and Kuwagata Oger. Rhinoceros beetles or Kabutos come next with Kabuto Ranger and Beat Buster. The rest of the King Oger crew literally makes up each of their own representations within this group. It's cool to see such a diverse set of motifs within this larger group. I'm not surprised at all that there's more Kuwagata and Kabuto on here. I feel like those are definitely the more popular bugs in Japan. I think they use them to fight, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, I don't really have the courage to look it up. But the insect world has so much more potential for ranger motifs. I'm sure they'll take a break from this group after King Oger, but I'd be interested to see where it pops up next. I know I fell off King Oger and I intend to change that soon, but I gotta give it to one of these kings as best suit. And in my opinion, gosh, this was so hard. It was close between Papillon and Hachi, but I gotta tip over to Papillon Oger. For a similar comparison, Magipink uses fairy wings to express a light and playful design, but Papillon Oger's design is just so menacing, and it has the perfect expression matching Rita. Alright guys, we are down to our last 3 general families of animal groups: dinosaurs, birds, and wildcats. Which one do you think is next? I'll give you a moment to make some guesses. No worries, take your time. Ready? Alright, next up is birds. I'm incredibly unsurprised at the amount of representation that birds have in the ranger pool. Birds are so easy to use, and it's so fun to give a ranger flying powers and such. We do have quite a few different birds being represented here. The most we see is a phoenix, which I think is an easy choice, especially if you need some mythical aspect to the ranger's motif. In this group, we have Change Phoenix, Ho-Oh Ranger, Magi Red, Gosei Pink, and Ho-Oh Soldier. After that, we have eagles including Volt Eagle, Gao Yellow, Juo Eagle, and Washi Pink. 2 of these rangers are red, and that's very easy to see why. Eagles often symbolize strength and leadership, which are perfect classifications for reds. We have 2 hawks and 1 falcon after this in Red Hawk, Red Falcon, and Hurricane Red. I'm pretty sure the color reasoning behind this is very similar to the eagles, and they look similar enough for the logic to apply. Then we have swans with White Swan and Deca Swan, and we have some interesting one-offs. We have Change Griffin as a griffin, Yellow Owl as an owl, Blue Swallow as a swallow, Magi Yellow as a Garuda, Goan Red as a condor, and Goan Gold as a chicken. Similar to the bug group, this group benefits a lot from having one team fully dedicated to birds, but even so, there's a decent amount of variety. Of course, the most popular birds to use are going to be the eagles, hawks, and falcons, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those come up again. For the best birdo, I really want to say Magi Red, even though I don't believe it. It's between Red Falcon and Jewel Eagle, to be honest. This one is really hard, but I'm gonna go with Juo Eagle. It's a close match, but I love the way that instead of his visor being the mouth with the beak on top, the beak is his actual mouthpiece. And even though the eagle face on the chest is a little silly looking, I just love how simple but imposing it still is. Okay, ready for second place? Let me give you some time to guess. Choose one? Well, most likely you're wrong, because it's a tie for first between dinos and wildcats. Let's dive into the dinosaur family first. You know, there really isn't much to say about this group. There have been several teams that have been fully devoted to dinos, to the point where people were kind of complaining of unoriginality, which I can kind of see. I mean, in every team you have a decent variety and spread of dinosaurs, but you'll always have a red T-Rex. Other staples will be like Triceratops and some sort of pterodactyl or pteranodon ranger. There isn't really a whole lot of variation you can do with this, because there really are only a few dinosaurs that are staple representations of these prehistoric beasts, with others only really known if you're like a dinosaur kid or a paleontologist, I guess. So like I said, typically the reds are the T-Rex, the Triceras are mostly blue, with Kyoryu pink as an exception. The Terra squad is actually quite diverse. The colors are a little all over the place here. And yes, I know, is Abari Killer really a Terra dino? Well, I'm gonna say yes. So there. Then we got some stegos scattered in there with a bit of representation, as well as Brachiosaurus and Ankylodon. I'm not surprised that there's been multiples of these, honestly, because there's a lot of potential for these dinosaurs as mechas and weapons as well. We also have some aquatic dinos with the Plesiosaurus and Mosasaurus, and some one-offs like the Velociraptor, Parasaur, and Pachycephalosaurus. For Parasaur and Pachi, I'm not surprised on their inclusion as rangers, because we've had them as mechas for Alba Ranger, and it was only a matter of time before they got rangers themselves. But Velociraptor was always interesting to me. I wouldn't have thought of Velociraptor as a ranger, even though it totally makes sense. I'm no dino expert, but I usually think of Velociraptors to be quite small, especially in comparison to something like a T-Rex. And I swear, it's because of Jurassic Park that I always get a sense of incredible violence from these things. But it makes sense to have a raptor as a ranger. It's the ferocity of a T-Rex in a more agile form. There's huge potential in that concept. The dinosaur group has been pretty effectively tackled by Sentai, and why wouldn't it be? They're creatures from another time that lend themselves to so much power and mystery at the same time. It's super easy for them to make the dinosaur concept as imaginative as possible by integrating them with their rangers. Also, dinosaurs just sell. I don't know why, they just do. As for the top dino in this group, I'm giving it to Abba Red. It's so simple, but I think that's why it works. Its simplicity plays into the raw and savage might of a dinosaur. Plus, the way his mouth roars when he transforms, beautiful. Now, I'm sure you were probably thinking that dinos were actually going to beat out this group, and technically that very well may have been the case if I had included the full Zyuranger team on there. But in my opinion and classification, those rangers didn't belong to dinosaurs as much as the groups that I placed them in. But let's talk about wildcats. I think the reason that these are the top dogs, or cats, are because of how easily accessible and how actually tangible these animals are. And when I say accessible and tangible, I'm not saying that it's super easy to go out and touch a jaguar. However, it is very easy to go to a zoo or find a nature documentary about jaguars. These are animals that have a current impact on the animal kingdom, and what an impact they have. I mean, look at Lion King. That's one of the most popular animated films out there, and I'm pretty sure what makes people call any lion they see Simba. For the lions in this group, it's interesting that we have predominantly reds and yellows in the group. Yellow I see, of course, because a lion's fur is pretty close to yellow in real life and definitely in cartoons. Reds make a lot of sense because a lion symbolizes leadership, royalty, and nobility. Of course it's going to be used for a leader of the team. After this, we have the tiger group, which has a very interesting distribution. You could argue that Kiba Ranger and Gao White are supposed to be white tigers, but I mean, they're still tigers. Yes, same with Tiger Ranger and Ryuso Green, they are still tigers in my book. After that, we do have a few representatives for cheetah and panther, one solo for jaguar, and one for legit wildcat. My god, I can never get over that Ginga Man did this. Wildcats are definitely so easy for any franchise to embody as their concept. They can represent a lot of things like ferocity, tenacity, leadership, and really those are some traits that you want to see in your heroes or your ranger team. I think they're an easy bet for design motifs because they're kind of relatable too, and that maybe it'll spark a kid's interest in animals and zoology because of how cool Gal Red or Geki Red was. And speaking of which, of the Wildcats, I absolutely love Geki Red. Not only do the main 3 Geki Ranger suits just embrace the animal themes with the lack of belts and Wildcat stripes, Geki Red's is just a perfect balance of simplicity and ferocity. I also just love red, so if I had to choose from those 3, it's gotta be red. So what about which animal specifically gets the most ranger representation? Well, surprise surprise, it's the lions. So while dinosaurs and wildcats are tied as the top animal families in Sentai, lions specifically are the most used animals for ranger motifs. Right behind them are tigers. So here's a quick summary graphic to show you the breakdown of the animal groups in all Sentai. Was this breakdown what you expected? Did you guess right at which group was on top? Let me know if any of these findings surprised you in any way, but also let me know who your favorite animal ranger is. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back with more talks, analysis, and reviews of this wild and world of tokusatsu. See you next time.